Hey, good morning and welcome to our time of devotion as we go through a little passage of scripture and encourage ourselves for this week. One of the passages that has always inspired me over the years is found in Numbers chapter 9, verses 15 to 23. And let me read a few verses as we start off and take it on from there. This basically talks about the Israelites journeying through the desert. During the day, of course, they were covered by the cloud, and that cloud turned into a pillar of fire by night, providing for them, protecting them. But what's interesting is found actually from verse 17. It says, whenever the cloud lifted from over the sacred tent, the people of Israel would break camp and follow it. And wherever the cloud settled, people of Israel would set up camp. In this way they traveled and camped at the Lord's command wherever He told them to go. Then they remained in their camp as long as the cloud stayed over the tabernacle. If the cloud remained over the tabernacle for a long time, the Israelites stayed and performed their duty to the Lord. Look at verse 20. Sometimes the cloud would stay over the tabernacle for only a few days, so the people would stay there for only a few days, as the Lord commanded. And at the Lord's command, they would break camp and move on. Sometimes the cloud stayed only overnight and lifted the next morning. But day or night, when the cloud lifted, the people broke camp and moved on. Whether the cloud stayed above the tabernacle for 2 days, a month, or a year, the people of Israel stayed in camp and did not move on. But as soon as it lifted, they broke camp and moved on. What's interesting as I read this passage is the number of times it says the same thing. Either they stayed or they moved on. They stayed or they moved on. And I wondered why the Lord would allow this repetition of a sequence to be in His Word again and again. We kind of get the message that when the cloud lifted, they moved on, and when the cloud stopped, they stayed. But why would He want us to read this again and again and again and again? And one day as I was meditating, it kind of reflected our own lives as Christians. We're like these Israelites on our journey to our promised land. Of course, we're saved, but we're all walking towards our ultimate destiny and our ultimate destination, which is heaven. But along the journey, we follow Him. He's our cloud. And there are times, just like this cloud, things seem so unpredictable. There are some seasons that are so steady for a long time, and there are some seasons that seem so choppy that we do not know what's going to happen the next day. Just like the Israelites, it stayed one evening and then picked up momentum the next morning. And if we were to put ourselves in the shoes of these Israelites, you can imagine them carrying their tents, carrying the little babies, perhaps even carrying the older people on their shoulders, or some makeshift equipment, all their cattle, their sheep, their belongings. And it must have been a very rigorous journey, walking through the desert. No air conditioning, no facilities, no overnight B&Bs. And I think a lot of times they would just long for the cloud to stop for a few days so that they could just relax and refresh. And perhaps it did stop one evening, and they decided, wow, this is going to be a good little break for us. And you can imagine it must have taken them a good number of hours to set up camp, set up shop, pitch their tents, get the cattle settled, get the babies settled, get the old people settled, get everything settled, and think, okay, let's perhaps have a few days of rest. And what amazes me is if the cloud moved the next morning, they would have said, Lord, what in the world are you doing? We just cannot understand. And sometimes our own lives seem like that. We do not make sense of what God is trying to do. But what I recognize at the end of the story, they simply chose to follow the cloud, however erratic its behavior may have been. Whether it says it was for a day, for 2 days, for a couple of weeks, or for months, they recognized that their security, their provision, and their safety simply lay in following the cloud, even if it didn't make sense. And you would know the story by now that the cloud took them through the desert, but God provided supernaturally. quail, manna, the shoes on their feet grew with them, their clothes grew with them. As long as they stayed close to that cloud, even though it didn't make sense, there was provision. If they didn't follow the cloud, I'm sure they wouldn't last more than a week on their own. And I feel so encouraged reading this every time that at times I don't understand what God is doing, even in my own life, with the seasons that keep changing and things that sometimes just don't make sense at all. But I've understood as long as I choose to stay close to Him and keep following our cloud, the provision, the protection, the favor, the supernatural, everything that's connected to that supernatural cloud becomes part of our life. And so I want to encourage you this morning. You might be facing a very turbulent time in your life. You might wonder, what in the world is God up to? Why is He playing with my life? Doesn't He understand the pain, the turmoil with these changing seasons and these turbulent times that I'm in? But I simply want to encourage you. The Bible says God's ways are much higher than our ways. There are times we will never understand what He's up to. But at the end of the day, as we keep following Him, even when it doesn't make sense, we will be safe in the arms of the Father. He promises never to leave us nor forsake us, and He will be with us till the end of time. And so I want to bless you this morning and encourage you and say, keep following the cloud. In good times, in bad times, in times when it makes sense, and even in times when it doesn't make sense. Keep following. Keep on keeping on. Whether it's a day, 2 days, a week, or a month. In the end, the cloud took them to their promised land. In the end, our journey will end where God intended for it to. God bless you and have a great week ahead. Amen.